Hello and welcome to Take It to School with Dr. Tom Pritchard. I am your host, JP, at John Posman, Two-Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is the star of the show, the former WWE World Tag Team Champion, Smoke Mountain Wrestling Tag Team Champion 8 times over. He's, of course, the Doctor of Desire himself, Dr. Tom Pritchard. Dr. Tom, how you doing today, sir?
John, I'm doing great today. Thank you very much.
So what is going on in your world? I see Ricky the Dragon Steamboat has showed up
Yeah,
to JPWA
yeah.
now.
Monday, Ricky Steamboat wanted to come in and check out JPWA, get in the ring, hit the ropes a little bit. But the great thing that happened is Ricky came in, and what all great teachers, in my opinion, do, they start teaching. And he just started talking. He started explaining. He put on a seminar like about an hour and a half, and then got in the ring, hit the ropes. Just wants to get in there and knock some of the rust off. He lives close by in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it was awesome, man. The guys had a chance to ask him questions and listen to him. It was really awesome because he would go through scenarios and he would offer advice and offer his take on things. And they got to ask him about, or actually hear him talk about the WrestleMania 3 match with him and Randy Savage. So we had just watched that match Friday night. And this was the advanced class. And some of the guys in the advanced class had sat there and watched it with us. And if you go back and watch that match, um, it, it's still talked about to this day because of the storytelling. And if you really watch it, there's not a whole lot of intricate stuff in there. It's how they did what they did, and it's the little things and details in between. So that was really cool. Really
Yeah,
was.
that is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Mike Reed. Hi,
Hey,
guys.
Mike
Nice. Of course, Ibsen. Hello,
Ibsen.
Ibsen. Yes.
Yes, cool.
Ready to learn, he says. Dr. Tom.
Um,
Nice.
well, let's hope.
Mike
Sure.
Reed says, may I ask you a question, serious question without interrupting?
Who would interrupt Mike?
Yeah, what is
Who would
the
do that? I don't think you. If you've never watched this, and you wouldn't see us, or you wouldn't feel, or you wouldn't hear anybody interrupting.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think we're open to all, any and all.
yeah. But before getting back to Steamboat, this is an interesting question for Wally. Has anybody heard from Bobby Duncombe Sr.?
I have not. I don't know. I don't know where he would be living these days, if he even is. You
Yeah, I was just
know.
thinking about him because I was looking up old matches of Hogan, and
Hmm.
he was teaming up with Bobby Duncombe a lot in Japan. Bobby Duncombe
Wow.
Sr., of course. So this was like
Yes. I
1981. Yeah.
I went to my first on my first Japanese tour with Bobby Duncombe. So I think I went in '81, and I don't believe I wasn't on that. Hogan wasn't on the tour I was on, but Bobby Duncombe Sr. was. Ken Patera was. Afa and Sika. So and by yeah, my first tour of Japan was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
He is still alive. He's 78 years old. He's still alive. But
Oh,
yeah, I have not
very
heard a
cool.
peep from Bobby Duncombe Sr.
Yeah, I don't even know if he does any of the conventions or wants anybody to contact him. Some guys don't. I heard my old tag team partner Al Madrill just about everything and everybody in the business, which I think is good for the business.
Yeah, screw that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't mean it like that.
No,
Al
I'm
was
kidding.
just
I'm
a
kidding.
different guy. He was just different, and I can understand now why he was that way, but it took some time.
I am patiently waiting for Mike Reed to write back. He never wrote back about his serious question.
Oh yeah,
I'm
okay.
very intrigued for what it might be. But when it does come, we will get to Mike Reed. But with Steamboat, it's interesting. I heard an interview with him a while ago, and it was actually years ago. I was at a Q&A with him, and he was saying he preferred working with Flair over Savage because Savage wanted everything to go right, go perfect. Although he knew he could manipulate the crowd. If it went AWOL, Savage could adapt. But he just liked working with Flair because they literally called nothing. Everything was in
Yeah.
the ring. They just went out and did what, like he said, it was almost like blindly went out and just did it in the ring.
Well, there was instinct, and it was that chemistry they had, and Ricky even talked about Monday about he got two legal pads. One had one Randy had and one Ricky had, and they wrote everything down. And they had like I don't know the exact number, but over 80 spots or 80 moves in this match that they had to know in certain order. So like 3 weeks before this match, they didn't have a chance to wrestle each other before WrestleMania. They were going in there cold. They never worked with each other before, and they could. Randy wanted it all written down. Flair can't remember stuff, couldn't remember stuff, and I'm more of that philosophy too. I can't remember all that stuff. I kind of got to feel it too, and uh, both were obviously great opponents, but I can understand what Ricky would mean going out there because it was just a natural. Rick was where he needed to be instinctively, and Steamboat know when to turn and sell and do all these things. So I can certainly see that, but you got to say, even after all these years, how many years is it? It's over 35 years, right? WrestleMania. Well, hell, 38's coming up. So yeah, it'd be 35 years, I guess. There were still any in my opinion, anybody who teaches or coaches a professional wrestling school, that should be definitely on the list of match study, I think. For selling, psychology, and just telling a simple story. Yeah. Hello, Chris.
Bruce Pritchard's brother. Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah, that's me. I'm Bruce's brother, by the way. Thank you. Hey, Jason. Yeah, I'm okay. That's good.
Bo, the king of Kingsport. Tom, you are just like Al. He taught you something. Look at that.
Yes, Al did teach me something. He did. He taught me a lot of things, actually. So,
Look at Bo with the little cheap shot there. Damn.
You know
right.
what? I'm used to Bo James, Bill James coming on with a cheap shot there and there, but he's loud.
Ibsen wants to know if Austin shows up at JPWA, what do you want him to teach the students? What do you want him to talk about?
Whatever he wants to talk about. I didn't even ask Ricky to talk about any of this stuff, which is a cool thing. He came in and just started talking and, gave a scenario to a guy. He was talking about working a body part, and the heel shot him off to the corner, and he just said one word, move. So the heel came in with the knee, hit the corner, and then turned around. And what should he have done? Should he have gone after the knee, or should he go back to the arm? So this was a question he posed to the guys. That's something to think about. Some guys said, well, you'd go for the knee, but we had somebody who said, well, go back to the arm. Ricky says, yeah, I just invested all this time working the arm. He just said one word, move. So he didn't say he was going to come with a knee or anything. He can register the knee, but I'm going to go back to the arm. And then people automatically, subconsciously, psychologically think, sure, he put all this time in on the arm. So, I mean, little things that would make sense once it's broken down, explained that way, and showing why it's important and imperative to sell and get things over. I understand it's not the 70s. It's sure as hell not the 80s anymore, or 90s. I get it. We're where we are today. But storytelling is still storytelling. If you have guys and if you have characters in the book and compelling chapters for them to follow, I truly believe it can still work. And if you go back and you watch Savage and Steamboat from WrestleMania 3, look at the intensity, look at the body language, but also show me the spectacular moves, the high flying or the Havoc Coronas or toupees. They got their story across doing what they did, and it's because of who they were. Randy Savage was the Macho Man. Ricky Steamboat was the Dragon, and they weren't playing a part. They believed it. They were thinking shoot, but they were working. They knew what they were going to do, but it looked improvised. It looked unpredictable, and that's Ricky gave a great seminar on that this week. So it was awesome, and I think the guys got a lot out of it.
Sheldon, hey, greetings from Saskatchewan, Canada. Nice.
I like Saskatchewan, actually. How you doing, Sheldon? I know you can't answer it. Huh?
I feel like it's going to be pretty cold in Saskatchewan pretty soon.
It's going to be cold everywhere, John, just so you know.
That's true.
That is true.
Good question here from Jeff. Smoky Mountain Territory, what was your favorite town to wrestle in?
I know this sounds crazy, but every town I wrestled in was my favorite town. Knoxville was a cool place to be, but I mean, there were no really bad towns in Smoky Mountain. There were no really bad towns that I hated to go to that I can think of in any place.
Evansville? You like going to Evansville?
I went to the building. I didn't travel. I wasn't a tourist. The building was okay. I knew where I was going and did my job and come home. I made sure I enjoyed myself wherever I went most of the time.
Wally saying Dr. Tom and Bruce related? Get out of here. No way.
No, no way. No, no, no. I know a guy who knows him though, and uh, he signed a picture for me one time. So does that count?
Sure.
Yeah, wasn't he Doctor Love?
I believe so.
Doctor, yeah,
The brother. Brother Love.
Doctor Love.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Doctor Love. Yeah, that was him.
Diesel, well, Ibsen says Diesel said he went to the PC to speak for HBK in his class. Sean told Kevin, "Sorry, but we have to teach them differently."
Right.
What's up with that? Why is HBK and
I
WWF teaching?
I believe they're teaching the faster style and the spot style, and that's because that's what the people are saying they want these days. That I guess is the line of thinking. And they're right. They're paying attention to what the fans want. It's the old, I like to go fishing and I like strawberries, but I put worms on the hook when I go fishing because I'm trying to catch fish. So you're trying to attract wrestling fans. You give the wrestling fans what they want. Perfect sense. So if it's working, then do it that way. But I think it's always movement and nothing stays the same too long, because if it stays the same too long, it's gonna it's gonna get stale no matter what. So I guess they're doing this until they're not. But yeah, I heard the same thing that it's that quicker, that faster style, and if that's what people want, you'd be stupid not to give it to them. So give it. It's not about what I like, and I say that. But here's let me cover it by saying this. When I say the basics and fundamentals never got a style, you're still going to have a lockup. You're still going to have to know how to move. You're still going to have spacing in between. You're still going to have moments between those moves. No matter how good they are, you still have to have the moments in between. And instead of just doing the moves, if you do them with emotion, it's going to make a difference. So Flair and Steamboat in some of their matches, actually, you'll watch, they don't take a break either. I mean, but they go back into a hold, different style, Southern style, yes. But they go back into a hold. They don't live there. They come up and they're selling in between instead of just grabbing it and not doing anything. That's the difference. It's in the details, is what I'm getting at. I'm not saying we go and work a damn 1960s, Pat O'Connor, Buddy Rogers match, and you just wrestle a boring hold. Not at all. But you put something in between it and while you got it on. And that's what's missing today, in my opinion, in some places.
Paranormal Gaming. Hi, my name is Shane. I'm a huge wrestling fan. Hello, Shane.
Hey, Shane.
Brendan makes a good point here. Dr. Love, the Kiss song. Yes.
Yes,
They
yes,
call
yes.
me
I heard.
Dr. Love.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. They got that actually. Kiss wrote that after watching a Dr. Love segment with Ted DiBiase and and the Shockwave. I think it was Ted DiBiase and the Shockwave, and that was when Dr. Love, and they saw that on WWE, and,
Yeah.
and that's how that song came about. So Dr. Love, that was Bruce Pritchard's name when he was there. Okay.
Erica, why does Evansville have a bad reputation? It's her hometown. Why?
Hey, I didn't say Evansville had a bad reputation at all. I actually liked Evansville, and Evansville had a nice coliseum, and I enjoyed it.
Is that still there, that
I
Coliseum?
think it is actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it is. It's been there for a while. So, yeah, it was a nice town to me.
Ibsen was just following up on Nash. He said they still have something to learn. I mean, they should be able to learn and take something from Kevin at least.
Oh, no doubt. And I would go out on a limb here and say Sean probably did say, "Hey, talk to these guys." So I don't think they're closed-minded. I don't believe they're closed-minded. I think that Sean told Kevin out of the gate, "This is what we're teaching because this is what works and this is what the style is these days. This is what it is," and they do a good job of keeping their finger on the pulse, I think, for the most part. And if nothing else, I believe both Sean and Hunter and the guy she has with him uh, do love the business, and they want it to succeed and thrive, and they don't want it to. They're not looking to kill it by any stretch of imagination. So they're doing what they believe is best. And I think if they ever come to the realization that they need to change, they'll change. But for right now, this is the way they're doing it.
So the topic at hand today, I want to talk about Jerry the King Lawler. So if you're watching Vice the last few weeks, Tales of the Territory, he's basically been the star of the show. I mean, they were talking about
Yeah.
Memphis, so naturally the King of Memphis is going to be the star of the show. He had the best stories, obviously, and we were joking around off air saying he's a better storyteller than Dutch, and Dutch is
Right.
known as being like the greatest storyteller. But like to me, Lawler and Cornette are probably like two of the best storytellers. But where did you first meet Jerry? I guess it was early '80s
Yeah.
Memphis.
Yeah, it was Memphis, early '80s, and I don't. It was early '80s, and I wasn't there a real long time, and I didn't really have a lot of interaction. It was the later part of going to Memphis is when I had more interaction and more understanding of the King and Memphis and understanding because I just was. Uh, I can't explain what I was back then, but when I finally got to realize and look at the King for um, who he is, who he was, and what he is, then I had an even more appreciation because this was after Kaufman, and this was after a lot of stuff he had done after being hit with a car by Eddie Gilbert, doing all this insane stuff, and him and Terry Funk had that empty arena match, and Terry was coming in at that time too, still feeding off that, and it was that's when I kind of got the uh, get to know Lawler in a different way, and so he was certainly the king, and that's where I saw that was a lesson in watching a guy with confidence and belief, how true it came whenever he was in front of the camera, and how those guys, when they talk about the realism they brought to it, they brought the realism because you had people who came down from the hills and from the mountains who'd been in fights and who truly believed these guys were, toughest son of guns on TV. And they're on TV and they were stars and they come out and present themselves as stars. And that's when I really paid attention to Jerry Lawler because he would be mobbed on the street or he couldn't go anywhere without being known. And uh, that was he set off that vibe, that aura, and that was a special uh, thing whenever he cut a promo or whenever he came out for his entrance at the Mid South Coliseum. It was amazing the wrestling fans they had, uh, who you could feel the buzz in the air, you could feel the vibe. So uh, yeah, I've known him for a while, but it was the last time when I really kind of looked at him in a different light and saw, okay, now I understand why he is the way he is. He has to be that.
Yes. So Shane St. Jerry's a cool guy. He makes killer artwork. Yes, if you go to Headlocked Comics, my
Yeah,
buddy Michael Kingston, he does all the artwork for them. Awesome stuff.
yeah. You see this painting right behind me, right here. That's a Jerry Lawler original. My brother
Really?
Bruce. Yeah, that's Jerry Lawler right there. It's got all my brothers in that painting. So yeah,
I've got a couple awesome ones. One is of him. It's like hidden over here, so I can't get it. But one is of him and Kaufman. One is of him beating up all the ECW guys, and I got another one of him, a drawing of himself as the king, like a very cool like cartoon drawing. But yeah, it's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I remember getting the wrestling magazines in the '70s, and he was doing the Patriot. Do you remember the Patriot cartoon in Wrestling Monthly by chance?
No, I don't
Okay,
remember that. No.
okay. Here's the deal, and I would see Jerry Lawler, and I remembered, Lawler was just starting out in Memphis, but he was already self promoting, and he even talked about on the Tales from the Territories about sending pictures in and getting Memphis coverage on the magazines. That's the way it was back then. So they were smart in the beginning. They all understood promotion. I think that both he and Jerry Jarrett did a great job doing that.
When you think about Lawler, it's funny. It's like that's how he got into the business. doing those drawing stuff that you don't think of him like, you don't normally think of that's like a way in. You know what I mean? Like being such a good artist that they'll bring you to the show and make you kind of be a part of the show as being an artist. Never really heard of anybody else getting into the business that way.
Well, I don't know. That probably either was intentional or unintentional. But I tell you, I took pictures at ringside when I was 12 years old and got published in Gong and Wrestling Review and uh, Wrestling Monthly, and so did Paul Heyman, and so did Jim Cornette and Eddie Gilbert. You know what I mean? So that was a way to get in because now you're at ringside and you're up close and personal, and I'm watching everything I can and taking pictures at the same time. So Lawler just had that hand-eye coordination, and he was a great athlete, no doubt. But I'll bet you, well, Jackie Fargo was his guy, right? Who he
Yep.
watched. Okay,
Yep.
so watching Jackie Fargo in that environment in Memphis, I mean, where these guys were uh, on par with Elvis, I would dare say. In popularity, they're drawing over 10,000 people every week. I mean, every week in Memphis, and they're watching. There's only 3 channels, I understand, but most of the households were on wrestling, and all that stuff they talk about on there. If you didn't know, you might say, "Oh, that's not real." Well, then when you go, "Yeah, that was how it was back then." And those guys were, the story Lawler tells about the guy who comes up as he's leaving the arena with a brick in his hand, and Lawler's looking at him and says, "You throw that, I'll run you over." And then he throws the brick, and Lawler goes to floor it, and his tires are flat. It's like,
Yep.
oh my God, you know, who who would have a story like that? I mean, where else would you find something like that happening? I mean, now what's he going to do? Because you got 4 flat tires, he can't run. He doesn't know if there's people about to surround him or what. So these guys had to be tough and know how to tell a story, know how to bluff their way out of stuff if need be. But yeah, it was. I think Lawler was perfect for Memphis. Definitely perfect. Still perfect.
Speaking of your drawing, he said, remember that great drawing Shane was saying here of Shane McMahon, Vince, and Vince Sr. And Jerry shows that he
Yes.
gave it to Vince as a gift.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, very awesome. So yeah, Bruce had that done for all of us, all for myself and Bruce and then our 3 other brothers. So yeah, that's up there. He also had some jackets. Lawler did some jackets for us too, with like the Beatles album cover. He made it was awesome. Anyway,
Barbara, hello. Sorry I'm late. Hello, Dr. Tom. Hope you're having a good week.
Barbara, you're not late. Just on time. You're right on time about that. And
Ronaldo,
Ronaldo, yes.
yo. Interesting question here. Not about Memphis, but about Jake the Snake Roberts and Lawler's feud. Mega Mouth Spike. Spike, what's going on? Jake Roberts said he was offended when Jerry Lawler made fun of his real life battle with alcoholism.
I would be offended too, but I think Jake got over it. And I'd get over it too.
Isn't that, though, Vince's idea, not necessarily Lawler's?
Well, here's what I would say about that. I think Jake understood what Lawler was trying to do. And I also think Jake knew that if he said he wasn't offended, then wouldn't get as much attention, and it wouldn't mean the same thing when someone say I was offended, even though he might
Right.
not, or he might, I don't know. But I'm going to go out on a limb again and just say that Jake is smart enough to know, and he understands what wrestling is, and nothing's off limits, in my opinion. I mean, there might be some off limits, but I don't think this was off limits. It's real life, and that's what made Memphis real. If you were paying attention to the territories, they said we did some real stuff there and make people believe it's real. So why wouldn't a jerk make fun of somebody who's having a battle, with these demons and things like that? Yeah, we're hitting in the gut, or at least not below the belt yet, or maybe that is below the belt. I don't know. Everybody's lines are different, but no, I think it was Jake probably knew.
Lawler saying, Barbara's saying Lawler tremendously talented as far as being a gifted artist. I agree. Went to art school. Interesting.
Yeah, but you have to. I mean, no matter if you uh, went to art school or not, you still have to have talent. I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
She's asking if Lawler had traveled the world like Flair, do you think it would have harmed his gimmick, maybe exposed him a bit?
Well, uh, I don't. Here's what I saw when Lawler won the AWA or the Unified title from Kerry in Chicago. He did do some trips in Dallas and Chicago and stuff like that. And it wasn't a Flair deal, but uh, I I think Lawler would have been like every other great champion. I think he would have found a way to be creative until he got tired of it and said, "Here you go, you can have it." But I think I don't know that he would have exposed himself because I think he's smart enough to know without getting your opponent over, it doesn't mean anything, even not during that match, but to come back in a rematch if need be or if not. But I mean, something to lead to the next or lead to this guy being elevated, and that's what the world champion should have done. Um, I think Lawler would have been just like Flair in that respect. I think he would have been. I think he would have had enough creative ways until he just got sick and tired of doing it.
When you first saw Lawler, obviously the Kaufman stuff, but there was also before that in the same year the Dutch feud, which was going on, which was great. And
Yeah.
then after that, again, he's got this Bill Dundee feud. So it's one of those things where he kind of gets a vast, different array of talent working with. I mean, Dutch is completely different than Dundee, who's everybody's different than Kaufman, but Lawler can work with anybody. And you mentioned Funk. If Funk was before that, those were awesome matches. So it seems like he could kind of do what Flair was doing because he could wrestle with anybody, really.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. He was creative enough. We've watched a match with Lawler versus Nick Bockwinkel, and they came back with the stipulation that, because Lawler throws a hell of a punch, and Nick said, we'll come back. I don't know if it's $5,000 or it's more like $500. Sounds more reasonable. If you got caught throwing a punch, you get fined $500 a punch, some gimmick like that. But they brought it back and they were telling the story because Nick had his match and Lawler had his match, but they made it work. They knew each other's stuff enough to know how to work with it, and so all the matches. I don't know that I've seen a really horrible, terrible Lawler match. I mean, he knew how to. If he wasn't sure, which he always was, but if he didn't know you, then he was going to do things to not only protect himself but get the match over to by doing less, and less is more. And Lawler was a master at it.
Really, really was. It's just crazy to think like he could make the punch mean more than a guy today can make the Canadian Destroyer.
Yeah, but and that's the thing. One punch, he could do one punch, but also he could sell one punch. He would sell for you because he understood if there was no selling, nobody's going to get behind him. Why are you going to get behind this guy who keeps staying strong the whole time? And Lawler understood that part of it. So, he and Dundee complemented each other for all those years in Memphis. They worked with each other. They teamed with each other. They had angles against each other. And I don't think you could have found two other guys that had the chemistry those guys did.
Tony, my eye. He
As
blinded
Terry.
he blinded
Yes,
Funk.
Terry had his eye taken out by that no good, sleazy yellow dog.
So good. Funk is the best. Oh, look at this. An maybe anti Lawler he got here. Lawler was a small fish in a big pond in the WWF, just like Kerry Von Erich. Oh, wow.
But here's the difference: is Lawler did go to Memphis to WWF at that time. Lawler was getting major press with Andy Kaufman. He was a small fish in a big pond, but he had outgrown the pond, and he also was venturing out, and so he was getting on these talk shows and doing these things that some of the other guys weren't doing quite just yet. And Andy Kaufman was still somebody that people were paying attention to. when he did stuff. Um, and he's still with WWE to this day. And you got to say that that's a hell of a longevity to have. At 73, 74 years old, still gets in the ring, throws a drop kick. I've seen some. I don't condone it necessarily. I don't recommend it certainly, but if you still want to go do it without embarrassing yourself, do it. That's all I got to say. So big fish, small pond, yes, but he also ventured out and he was successful. He did have angles here too. So
Jason says you remember seeing a USWA match where the ref checks Lawler for foreign objects, finds nothing. Lawler turns to the crowd, smiles with a chain in his mouth, dastardly.
I used to do that with a donut hole. I put the donut hole in my mouth. Take it back out. Sometimes I'd hide it. Yeah. Donut holes are hard to find too. So
he's just messing with the crowd. Great heel, Lawler. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to know how to do that though. Not everybody can do it.
Magazine is saying the character Jimmy King, played by Oliver Platt in the movie Ready to Rumble, reminded me a lot of Jerry Lawler. I always thought it was supposed to be almost like a ripoff of
Probably.
Jerry
I mean,
Lawler.
who knows?
Yeah.
Only they know for sure. But yeah, that sounds about right. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, you had Virgil, you had Vincent. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you wanna play? Okay. Hey, what's this? Yeah.
Hakeem and Dusty Rhodes. Yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like that all the time.
Sure.
Shane is saying, shame Jerry didn't get to do the stuff with Elvis like he wanted to in the 70s.
Well, yeah, I guess it is a shame, but Elvis kind of went and messed that up. So
Mitch has got something here that you kind of mentioned before. He says, has Jerry ever drawn you a personal picture or cartoon? He's an amazing artist. Yes.
Yeah. Again, Dr. Romance got that done and gave it to all of us. So
yes. Brandon saying, I don't think Jerry was a small fish in a big pond. Major feud in the WWF with Brett, and it was legendary and still talked about. Well, obviously the Kiss My Foot match as well.
right.
To me, too, he was already 20 years in when he got to WWF, so he's not going to be a main eventer, I don't think. But he was in a big feud with Brett for 2 years.
Right. And I think he came in knowing that. He'd already been got his world championship, won the AWA world championship from was it Henning, right? Henning. And
Yep.
Yeah. So got that under his belt, and he came to WWE as WWF as a commentator, and still wanted to work and let him work. So, and had the angle. So I think he knew, but he was that damn good where they could put him in there and work with Brett, and Brett wanted to work with him. So, yeah, what do you say? That's awesome. Brett knew, and Lawler knew.
It's almost like, I know it's 2 years, but it's almost a little bit longer because Jerry kept that feud going. But that's pretty good to feud with the top guy for 2 years in WWF. I mean, and you'd be a 20+ year veteran, so it's not like you're in the prime of your carear there. But
right, but he had
great.
shirts, he had gimmicks, he had they sold stuff on him, and he did have a name, and regardless of what you say, people knew him from Letterman, people knew him from. If you're a wrestling fan, you knew who Jerry Lawler was in Memphis, and he ran for the mayor of Memphis. He was known in a pretty big city here in Tennessee and covered nationally, and so yeah, he he had a pretty good run. He's still having a good run.
Bo was saying a Lawler program not talked about enough was with Bob Armstrong, the Bullet. They took it from the Memphis end to Nashville to Knoxville, and it drew in every town.
Yeah, I remember seeing some highlights with Lawler and Bob, but I could see there's two classic workers from the South too who knew that style, knew each other's, had that same psychology, who understood. As a heel, you got to get heat. Babyface, you got to sell. You got to build for that comeback, and so yeah, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I thought it was pretty exciting.
Barbara said Elvis has left the building or had left the building. That's
Yeah, Elvis. Yeah, Elvis left the building. He did. Poor guy.
Cute Kanji says, "Oh well, never mind about Elvis. He could have just been substituted with his cousin, the Honky Tonk Man." Yeah,
I
true.
think they did that a couple times. I ain't that Elvis. Not now, baby. Yeah,
I loved Honky. Thought he was great.
Honky was great. Yeah,
Indy, hello everybody. Hello,
Indy.
Indy.
Hello.
Tony says it's amazing that Lawler stayed in an area so many years and kept the fans coming. That's true.
It is true, and as an owner, that was his job. So he kept guys fresh, and he brought in guys that he really wanted to work with, like Austin Idol, and Dundee was homesteading there too. But they drew money, and that was the key. That's why they didn't have to leave, and they were a huge part of the promotion and helping run things. So I think in that time, especially, you wanted to keep those guys around unless they were valuable to somebody somewhere else, like they did with Dundee in Louisiana. Sent Dundee to Louisiana, booked that. Bought Watts wanted a change of pace, a new set of eyes on things, and see what he could do with it. And Dundee went down with the Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, and that's Dundee got all his stuff in Memphis and Australia, and they were pretty innovative. And for that time, people call it hot shotting in Louisiana, but they did better business they had been doing for a while. So, Lawler just didn't want to leave, and he owned part of the territory. But, Dundee's home was in Memphis. He knew that. He was just going to be out of the area for a while.
I like when Jerry Lawler would draw Howdy Doody face over the top of video still of Bob Backlund's face. Yes, good stuff.
Yeah, well, he was having fun too, no doubt.
I love Jerry Lawler's insults. Yes, great.
That's
joke
another
teller.
thing. That's another thing. Yeah, joke teller, but it just came rolled off his tongue. And that's where Jim Cornette got his deal too. Listening to Lawler, listen to Fargo, and listen to those guys just rattle stuff off because it was natural. They were having fun doing it, and that's. I think that's something a lot of people lose in the translation when it's about having fun.
Barbara says Bill Dundee seemed to work better with Adrian Street. Their styles complemented each other.
Well, okay, maybe that's an opinion too. But Adrian had a distinct style, and whenever I worked with it, maybe it's just me, but when I worked with Adrian, all he wanted to do is stretch me and eat me up. So I said, "Man, no."
Right.
So maybe he and Bill had a different chemistry. But I liked Adrian. I'm just saying that. I'm saying that affectionately.
Was the formula to bring in a heel, beat up Lawler, and after a few matches, Lawler gets the revenge? Seemed like it.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Usually, he would have somebody come in and beat him for the Southern title, maybe bring him in the week before sometimes, or bring him to TV. Lawler would put the Southern title up and get beat, come back, lose it the next week, and then come back for the final blow off. So they get about 3 weeks sometimes with guys like Austin Idol and whoever else you brought in. But I know he liked working with Idol a lot. But yeah, that was the formula pretty much. And that, what's amazing is people kept coming back for that because of Lawler's not only his insults and his promos on TV, but man, they would make it a spectacle every Monday night, whether Lawler would come out on a horse or have the cape or come up from the, bottom, whatever it is, spotlights. They dressed it up, and then they also they had the sizzle plus the steak, because when Lawler and Dundee went out and worked, they worked their ass off. When the Fabs went out against the Moondogs, they worked their ass off. It was a good crowd to work in front of. So it was easy because Lawler sold as a babyface and would make that gigantic comeback, and the fans would get with him. So when he got beat, they felt it with him. But they knew when that strap came down, Here was your comeback. And Lawler had fire and he had confidence. And that's a combination you have to have.
Love the 87 feud with Austin Idol. That's one of the maybe his best, maybe one of his best, just so good because then Tommy Rich gets infused,
Right.
and Heyman is kind of infused, and Bam Bam Bigelow. I mean,
Yes.
such a good feud. And he technically loses the blow off match, Lawler, which is like a huge shocker. I know he comes back a little bit later and gets his revenge, but he loses the big cage match, the blow off. Like you would think he's definitely gonna win this one. So they even
Right.
changed the formula on that one.
That was doing doing things like that kept everybody on their toes. It was unpredictable. Nobody could guess it. And and they did a deal. And I asked Bill about this when Bill Dundee came and visited us this summer. And I was talking about the time they shaved, Lawler and Dundee had their hair versus hair, and Lawler went over and Dundee had to shave his head. Well, he came back the next week and said, I wanted a rematch. I'll put my wife's hair on the line. And they just knew that Lawler was going to have his head shaved because they certainly wouldn't shave a woman's head. Well, by God, they sure did.
Yeah.
And, it was like, oh my God, it had women crying and people so upset. So it's those elements that I don't think you can infuse them in today. I just don't, because I don't think people would have the same feelings or emotion, or you might butt hurt somebody. I don't know. It's just yeah, but that's what they used to do. That's what made them creative and different, because they felt the tension. They were doing the same thing Andy Kaufman was doing, making people feel uncomfortable. Oh my God, she's got to get her head shaved now and all. So yeah,
Lawler had some fun appearances in the Royal Rumbles a few times. Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah, exactly. So he's had a good time. He's had a really good run
Oh
so far.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tony says Jerry was good as a heel, babyface. He could talk. He had the talk for both.
But that's the thing. As you listen to him tell these stories, he's having fun telling and reliving these stories. When he was telling you these stories, he was having fun on TV telling you stories. He knew he had your attention, the audience attention. So it didn't matter if he was a good guy or a bad guy. You wanted to hear what he had to say, because it was always intriguing or entertaining or compelling, I thought.
What do we got here from Magazine? I like when Bret Hart got the crowd to chant Dairy Queen when Lawler took the mic. Also Burger King as well. They would say Burger King.
Dairy Queen makes no sense to me. But Burger King, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
Maybe a negative thing here from Dr. V. McFarland. Says Lawler was fortunate to hide in the confines of the Mid South Arena. Southern title was junk, which was funny. Back in the day, King Cobra won the title Lawler made up and disappeared with it. Wow, I know King Cobra won it, but did he?
Right. Well, okay. And that's fine to have your opinion. That's fine. I'm just saying, um, you're missing the point here. It Lawler was over, no matter if he did a job for King Cobra or whoever you want to name, but King Cobra at one time was a pretty damn decent worker, pretty good worker, very good worker. I'm talking years and years and years ago. So you don't know the talent if you've never seen him in Mid South, if you've never watched any of his Memphis, Louisville, Evansville. I mean, I'm talking on a nightly basis, and you've seen him like do it in Memphis, the next night in Louisville, and you listen to the crowd. You have to see it to really make a judgment. I think the Southern title at one time, when you're drawing these houses, they were actually drawing money. They're all a prop, no doubt. It's all junk at the end of the day, because uh, they're titles, they're championships in the people's eyes. That's the story, the telling. But it doesn't matter if King Cobra won and Lawler made up the title and disappeared with it. None of that really matters. when it comes right down to it, there's guys who can and guys who can't, and Lawler was one of the guys who definitely did. So
80Y says puppies. I guess Addy
right,
maybe says puppies. That's a lot of people, younger generation will remember Lawler for that for sure.
sure. No, I think it's more the older generation now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
been
That's
a while.
true.
Yeah.
Good point. So Bo says he saw how they handled business and stayed on top in both roles as talent and owner.
Now, there's no doubt uh, Jerry Lawler's a smart guy, no doubt about it. So he was, he didn't have any alcohol vices, drug vices, things like that. So he kept his head on pretty straight and had a feel for the business. He made sure he knew what he was going to do to get over. So it made perfect sense. As an owner, especially, he would have to understand both roles. And for the most part, he did a pretty good job of it.
Lawler is witty on the mic, but some of his jokes and one-liners are so cheesy. Yeah, of
They're
course.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a little. That's the Henny Youngman stuff. Yeah, it's supposed to be cheesy. That's why. Yeah, good point.
Barbara saying when he pulled down the strap, get that single off the shoulder and punch, off the top rope, what a huge pop he would get.
That's what I mean. It's like the people's elbow. Once the Rock does that cross, it's done. So yeah, pulling that strap down, that was the signal. That was the body language, and I don't think it's ever failed. It hasn't failed yet.
Do you think Vince McMahon was a better heel in Memphis or WWE? Mick Memphis was pretty good. I feel like WWE really came into his stride. Mick Memphis, when he was doing that stuff, was he was kind of trying to figure himself out a bit.
I think Vince is a good heel no matter where he's at. Yeah.
Barbara, who has more ex-wives, Lawler or Flair?
That I'm not quite sure of. Are you? Do you know?
I think Flair, right? Doesn't Flair beat him?
I
I
don't.
think
I don't know. I
because
honestly
Flair has
don't.
5 ex-wives. I
Wow.
think
Oof, okay. Well, then I think he probably does. But then again, I don't.
because Beth, right, David's mother, then Charlotte's mother's a different one. Then he had that other girl that he was at WrestleMania 24 with. Wendy, but they're supposed to be not married anymore. So I think he's at 4 or 5. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, but I can't speak with authority. But
yeah, true.
yeah.
That's a good question. That's a close one for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Addie says it's 250 in the UK over there. Wow, good
Well,
morning or
you know
maybe good
what?
night.
Yeah, I was gonna say good morning or good night, or obviously you're up cruising the web and finding this, which is awesome. That's kind of cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, another anti-Lawler thing here.
Here we
In
go.
reality, Lawler could not beat his meat, much less work with Bockwinkel, Flair, Hogan, Patero, Terry Funk, or the Road Warriors. Wow, he's
Well,
not a Jerry Lawler fan. Wow.
well, Dr. V, I will say this: you are completely entitled to your opinion. I believe this is all just an opinion. By the way, Bachman was spelled EL, not LE, and you may not have enjoyed any of his work with either of these guys, but I will say this: he's made matches out of all these guys. Not about beating them, but he certainly could. He beat Terry Funk, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Flair certainly has more kids. Yeah, well,
Well,
that's true than Lawler. Yeah, that's true. Addie is having some beer and chilling. Nice, I like that. Nice.
there you go. Good way to do it. If you're gonna drink beer, this is a great place. Everything is subjective. I agree 100%. That's why I'm saying. I'm seeing it from a different.
Mitch says thoughts on the King doing business with ECW in the '90s. He worked with Sabu and RVD. Obviously, he
Once
had that feud with Tommy Dreamer as well.
Yeah, once again, nobody would have expected that because he hated ECW, extremely crappy wrestling. He hated Paul Heyman. He hated those guys. He's not going to work with them. Neither will Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette and Paul Heyman were bitter enemies to the end. And then, so you could never say never, and that's a great thing, or that was the great thing back then, especially. So
Extremely crappy wrestling. Yeah.
yes. Oh my God. He would never come work for those assholes. So and what? I can't believe that. And Cornette too. Oh my God. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Was it's great when you can have those moments. It's great when you finally come together and say, "Look, I know you're a dickhead, but I'll do it for this. Then we'll do it for this, and then we'll get this out of it. We're good. We're good." But there's been double crosses. There's been bitter feelings and jealousy and envy, and I don't know if that has anything to do with this, but I mean, um, things happen over time, and we learn that as time moves on. I think Sean and Brett have moved on from their hatred from everybody. So I mean, I think it was just at that time when I'm sure, or I would think, I'm not sure, that Paul Heyman probably reached out to Lawler. I know he reached out to Cornette, and Jimmy gave him his terms, and that was it. So, but RVD and Sabu, geez,
Helping them along. Yeah, they thought they were going to
yeah,
get RVD, so he was helping that along.
certainly,
Lawler had a great punch. I think Lawler probably had the best punch,
yeah,
arguably.
yeah. I would agree with that. So it's one of those things that that's that hand-eye coordination talked about.
Jason said he loved Lawler's feud with the Hart family. Yes, funny and hate worthy, but both at the same time there would be a little bit of a mixture. But yeah, it was a great feud.
Yeah, yeah. That and that was the guy that would come on and tell you stories about what he's going to do to Jimmy Hart's family. So they understood show business. They understood what wrestling was back then, and they gave it to him.
Bo was throwing it out. Fargo had the greatest punch ever, not Jerry Lawler.
Well, Lawler got it from Fargo.
Yeah, true.
Bob
Yeah,
James knows that. He knows that Jerry Lawler got it from Fargo. So it's kind of like Ricky Steamboat got the arm drag from Jack Briscoe. So
yep.
there you go.
And everybody knows it as Steamboat's arm drag, but it's really not. Yeah,
Well, and again, you know, it you still we're all certainly guilty of larceny. Take it, run with it. Until somebody finds it, and we say, "Well, yeah, I wasn't the one who said it." Like Kevin Sullivan says, he didn't bring up the devil's name. Somebody in the magazine did. So, all right, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I don't know.
Jimmy Valiant and Lawler did a great feud. That's another good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, even the minor angles or whatever anybody wants to consider minor or not as big as a Valiant, uh, Dundee,
Hey,
or
Valiant was going to be the king. He was going to be the king of Memphis when Jerry was out. So yeah,
Handsome,
that's a good one.
Handsome Jimmy. It was over and is still over in Memphis, Tennessee. I will go out on a limb again and say I think Jimmy Valiant could walk into a coliseum or into an arena in Memphis and get a huge ovation. He's one of those guys that's timeless and also has that uh, aura and star quality about him. So
Hey, my buddy Michael is here. He said, Tom, did Heyman really hate Lawler?
with a passion. I really, I couldn't tell you.
Well,
But I
Lawler
mean,
tells a story about how he was not, it was supposed to be a work punch,
yeah.
and he shot on him.
Oh,
He said he really
oh,
punched him. So who
oh.
knows if he's telling a story there, but he claims he really hates Heyman
Well,
or
right.
hated him. Yeah.
Well, maybe he does, but I know he's cordial to him now. Why would we hold on to this hatred for so
Right.
long?
Right.
Is my question. But maybe he does. Maybe he has good reason to. And maybe he has a better reason to tell the story of like I hit him for real instead of I had to work with punch. Because I didn't want to hurt him or anything. Well, I was being an asshole that night. He's an asshole. See, they could buy into that because if anybody who knows Paul could understand. But let me say this too. Lawler, I've worked with Lawler a few times. He's thrown the punch where I haven't felt the thing. Then he's thrown it where I have. not knocking me out or anything like that, but it's just sometimes they get away, So they would do stuff like that. He threw a chair at me one time, just threw it, you know, folded up, hit my eye, gave me a black eye. So 2 days later, he looked at me and says, "Oh yeah," pointed to his eye. I said, "Yeah, it was you." He goes, "No way." I said, "Yeah, you threw the chair." He goes, "Oh, it wasn't me." I don't care. It's all, you know what I mean? Well, you threw the chair at me, and I'm just telling. I'm not mad about it, but you hit me and gave me a black eye. No, I'd never do that. So okay, I get it. So we'll play this game for a while.
Right.
Here, I didn't kick you. All right.
What do you think though the legacy of Lawler is? Like, what do you think? Just the grand scope of things, his whole career.
Well, Uh, I don't know I don't know if this is it or not, but there have been guys throughout the history of the business call themselves the king. But Bobby Shane called himself the king. Who else? King Curtis. Uh, but he's the one guy who took it the extra step. And anywhere you go, I don't say hey Jerry, I say hey King, and most people call him King. Um, so he's that guy who, when it came right down to it, he wasn't a King Booker. There you go. He was, for God, I don't know, for however long. Yeah, King Harley Race. So he was a king longer before Harley, longer before and after King Booker, and so he's that guy who will, I think, have that legacy of being who he was and true to himself no matter what. Um, his legacy though is he look, some guys are in the Smithsonian. Dutch said he and Jeff have that match with the orchestra playing or
Yeah.
whatever, and that
Yep.
match is in the Smithsonian. Okay, well, um, Lawler has, as part of his history and legacy, is one of the top 100 TV moments of all time. So, no, I don't think Buddy Rogers got that. So, there's something there with this guy. He was a special guy, still a special guy, and I'm not sure how to word his legacy, but he's the guy who, when he came out and said he was the king, he was the king. He carried his crown everywhere he went,
Right.
and it wasn't like he was, it fit. It looked right for him to carry the crown when he would walk out. Some people it doesn't look right. Some people are just they're putting it on, and it's a ill fitting costume to me.
Yep.
Yep.
Just a couple quick hitters before we wrap it up. Wally said, "Did you ever work Red Bastien or Ray Stevens?"
No, never had the opportunity. That would have been awesome.
Andre wants to know. He asked this before, but he says, "Any anecdotes about you and Bruce as kids?" I don't know if anything you want to talk about with you and Bruce when you guys were kids.
You guys talking about Dr. Love? No, no, nothing. I really don't have anything I can share on this podcast.
Barbara's got a good question. Did you donate any money for the goalpost that was thrown into the river? Tennessee beating Alabama this weekend.
No, I did not.
How the hell did
They
they get that out of the stadium? That's what I want to
they
know.
got the big openings. Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay,
like as you go for the parking, not parking.
yep.
Yeah. Anyway, they got the big openings coming out there. So yeah, no, I didn't do any of that either. No, they've got plenty of my money already. Our daughter went to UT. They'll be okay. They'll have goalposts sooner. It'll be fine.
Were you shocked that they lost Alabama?
I'll be honest. Here's what I did, and this was really great because we sat here and watched the game, and every time Tennessee scored, my wife wasn't happy, but I was laughing, so she thought I was a closet Tennessee fan. I said, no, I'm not closet at all. But um, it wasn't a shock. It was awesome because when everybody came down on the field, it was that they took the aerial shot, and the orange is insane because that was
Yes.
over 100,000 people.
Yep. That was awesome.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was insane. So that when they were marching out, and Randy Boyd, the superintendent or whatever, he says, "Yeah, don't worry about it. It's like let them get it out of their system over 16 years." So yeah, but it wasn't necessarily a shock. It was just the fact that uh, I had an Alabama fan sitting right across from me, and every time when the field goal hit, I just busted out laughing because it was obvious what was going to happen next.
A buddy of mine, huge UT fan, went to UT. We were laughing because the field goal at the end, the 40-yard kick, it was like a duck and it barely got over. It's
Yeah,
like, oh my
yeah.
God, it was the worst field goal you could
Doesn't matter.
possibly kick. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yep, went
Yeah,
through.
that's what I'm saying. Lawler was a small fish in a big pond. Well, the Vols beat the dadgum big fish to come on over to eat them up. How about that? I don't know.
Barbara says, please tell Dr. Tom where can we get the book, Pro Wrestling Curriculum, Advice, Suggestion, and Stories to help the aspiring pro get to the next level. Dr. Tom, where can I get the book?
Barbara's awesome, and she asks awesome questions. I just want to say that. You can get the book at jpwrestlingacademy.com. Go to the front page and hit training. It'll bring you the book. You can order from there. That's jpwrestlingacademy.com. Catch up on all the new stuff happening at JPWA. And if you're thinking about training, we have some classes coming up next year. And check it out, jpwrestlingacademy.com.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out the website, tmptempire.com. Before, follow Dr. Tom on Twitter at Dr. Tom Pritchard. Dr. Tom, anything else you got going on?
Yeah, I got next week. Well, actually, this week we're in Decatur, Tennessee, looking for Joe Kazana Promotions. They got some really good guys coming out too. The scene around East Tennessee is getting kind of crazy, but I like it. And then I'm headed to Fort Wayne, Indiana on the 28th and 29th. That's next Friday and Saturday. And look, that's Heroes and Legends. Looking forward to that.
All right. Good stuff. As always, thank you, everybody, for the great questions. Thank you, Dr. Tom. See everybody next week for a little Taking to School with Dr. Tom Pritchard. We'll see you next week, folks.